So they're going to start off, give you a little bit of background on what they're doing, and then we're going to have some Q&A time. So, all right, take it away.
All righty. Well, thank you very much for having us, and thank you all for showing up and showing us your support. It means a lot to us as a volunteer project. Apparently we have musical accompaniment today. Not expecting that, but it adds drama.
Pocket D all over again.
Here. First, once again, I'm Jack Snyder. I'm a staff writer for Missing Worlds Media. For those of you who have been following our Kickstarter, I write a lot of the lore-related Kickstarter updates. First, let me tell you a little bit about Missing Worlds Media. Our company began with essentially the shutdown of NCSoft's massively multiplayer online game, City of Heroes. There was a large fan community of that game, and I see some members of that, that fandom here in the audience today. It was a very strong and cohesive fandom, and there was a desire to preserve that community. And among many other schemes that were floated upon that shutdown was of developing a spiritual successor multiplayer online game. We are not in any way affiliated with City of Heroes or with NCSoft or with Cryptic Studios, the now shut down Paragon Studios. We're not a remake or a formal successor. We are a spiritual successor in the sense that we are same genre, trying to retain the same feel and same community and same sense of flexibility. But we have moved past the point of being just a fan project, and we are a real corporation with an agent with the Secretary of State and everything. We are a real business. We've come from all different walks of life, brought in a variety of different types of experience. Stephanie's a neuroscientist, I'm a law professor, variety of people. Right now, we are an all-volunteer force, but many of us spend 8 hours a day or more working on developing this game for you, the fans. Most of you may know we ran our Kickstarter funding for the game last October and early November. We had a wildly successful Kickstarter. We more than exceeded our goal. Raised $678,000 plus. So thank you all for that, all who contributed. And thank you for the show of faith for all of you who keep saying, shut up and take my money. This great outpouring of faith really has been great for us. It's given us a lot of charge, helps keeps us motivated, and of course pays for the tools that our artists and our programmers use in order to create what we're working on. Even when you're not seeing updates, work is going on behind the scenes. As I said, we are a dispersed volunteer structure. We've the crowd here in some early concept art of Titan City nicely reflects the dispersed volunteer structure we've got and all the different balls we have in the air. We have, for instance, a much larger writing and artist staff than physical plant game development studios have. We have, what, 40-some people on the composition team alone? 28 some. In any case, considerably larger than the standard for most video game studios. All dispersed across the country. All our collaboration is through online tools and online meetings and exchange of documents. This is challenging because we can't all get together in a room when confusion happens, but on the other hand, because we have a dedicated volunteer force and we have this dispersed structure, it allows us much more flexibility. It allows us, once we get everyone on the same page, to get things done much faster than a conventional studio can. So it's proven unexpectedly powerful. Now, since we have on this panel 2 writers and an artist, you're mostly going to hear a little bit about the lore from us and a little bit about the art. So Stephanie can tell you a little bit about the lore drafting process, what the 2 of us do all day.
So basically, we have a general idea of things that we need to put together, and with each of those ideas, we know that we need 2 of these, 1 of those, 6 of those, and we figure out who writes that particular area the best of the team that we have, and then we assign that to a writer. They have to take that idea and formulate a pitch that fits not just the general idea, but fits the rest of the setting, fits in with the other characters that we already have, the factions, the city history, and then they submit a pitch. That goes to our continuity person, and she checks that against everything else in the city.
She essentially plays, for those of you who are also comics fans, she basically plays the role of the editor of a comics title for this entire game.
And once she verifies that everything works, nothing's repetitive that isn't needed to be repetitive, she puts her stamp on it, and then we put it into what we call the lore Bible, which is at this point a massive construct of approximately more than 5 novels worth of text already that our wonderful artists and gameplay people then have to look at to try and figure out how to put it into an actual game, making it work, making it pretty, making things not look horrible, making them work the way that we ask them to. And then if it doesn't work the way that we ask them to, we have to get together and find a way to fix it.
Right. Now we're going to tell you a little bit about visual development in particular, because we know you all want to see pretty pictures.
Okay, that's my area. One of the main aspects of our game, as you probably know, is our character creator. And I know many people probably spend hours in this thing like I do. We're going to have a huge variety of different costumes, boots, hats, eye styles, hairstyles, capes, anything you could possibly think of. We're probably going to have in every different color and every texture. So that's going to be coming out. That's going to be the first thing that comes out, and it's going to be in beta, so you guys get to test it before it actually comes out.
Right, so it'll be, current plan is to have that in beta testing even before the rest of the game is available. So you'll get to spend months developing your costume and then plug it into the game. So, as I said, you've got 2 writers on the panel here. So Stephanie and I are going to tell you a little bit more about the process of how we develop characters and groups, and a little bit about the substance of what we have.
So we've got a lot of individual NPCs, we've got teams of NPCs, we've got factions. All of them are created to not be the star of the show. They're designed to support the player character. We've got teams, we've got the Paragons, which is our star of the show heroic team that they are not the star of the show. They're the face that we're putting on the box because we can't put the player character on the box because we don't know what the player character looks like yet. That's kind of where you come into that. But then you work with the Paragons and then you surpass the Paragons' ability is the plan. So then they are relying on you to help them get things done. We also have villain teams and some other things that you'll find out about as the game is developed and released, and we have plans, lots of plans.
5 novels worth of text. The reason we're being coy here is much of the 5 novels worth of text is intended to be revealed through gameplay. We have an entire genre of documents within our lore Bible for secrets and how they're going to be revealed, for meta plots running through the game, recurring plot issues and things that are going to have multi-level revelations that you'll run into soon after you come out of the character creation process, and you'll continue to encounter throughout the game with more twists and more turns, even past release. We're trying to hit all the traditional comics superhero-dom bases. Superpowered adventure is a big tent, but the tent pole is the traditional American comics superhero stuff, and you can fit your creations into that world however you like, but we're trying to create that tent pole. We've got the usual sorts of enemies among our factions. We've got gangs, we've got a police department, we've got good and evil magicians, we've got super science, we've got a gazillion businesses, good, evil, indifferent, and everything in between. We've got individual heroes. Here we've got an image of our face on the box hero, Anthem. Anything to say about Anthem?
Mostly she is a hard as nails Marine that fights the good fight because it's what needs to be done. She's not gonna stop just because she runs up against this big bad that's stronger than her. She's gonna withdraw and find a new way to go at it, and then keep going at it until what needs to be done is done. One of the groups that she would face off against on occasion would be one of our gangs, which is the Rooks. They're pretty much a low-level gang of regular people that are looking for their little way to get superpowers, whether through training, working with illicit drugs, or anything else. They want to find a way to get those abilities and get that recognition.
Before we move off Anthem, and those of you who have been following our lore updates may know this, for those of you who haven't, Anthem nicely encapsulates the notion of new heroes rising to the challenge and becoming protagonists, even though she's effectively a supporting character, because she's actually to a successor of, she's the successor of a big, bold, traditional red, white, and blue super guy type character who had been around for decades, named American Star. So even our flagship character is a successor. So that notion of stepping forward and coming up and making your mark is reflected even in the supporting characters here. Return to the Rooks.
Yeah, going back to the Rooks, in composition, we create the pitch for the faction or the character or whatever it is. And this is, we have on the screen here, we have a basic description of the overall faction concept, and then one specific character type is described down at the bottom. It's one of the generic baddies, basically.
Yeah. So what you're seeing on the screen here is the sort of thing that Stephanie and I spend our days writing up.
And then once it's approved by our continuity person, it goes off to Cajun and the rest of the art team. And then
Someone's enthusiastic.
Okay, so I'm part of the 2D team. My name's CajunCatfish. And once they have the write-ups, we usually take those and use them as a base to create other characters. So one thing that you saw on the previous slide was that they had the checkered motif right there, and that the founder plays chess, but a lot of the other Rooks don't because they're just low-level gang members. So they had to look like thugs and like street gang, like all walks of life, just come together, vandalists, thieves, that kind of thing, just all together in one gang. And you can see that they're all completely different from one another. but they all look like they're from the same gang. And that's what we've been trying to go for here, is to give all of them some unique look that's fun to look at, and not just something that you slaughter to level. You know, it's something that you look at and you think about, and yeah, so that's what I've been doing. Okay, after 2D, we take it to the Marvelous Designer 3 team, if it's fabric, and that would also be me. So what I do is I take the clothing from the 2D drawing, and I create it in Marvelous Designer 3, which is basically like real sewing. I don't know, nobody sews here. Okay.
All these cosplayers, nobody sews.
Yeah. You just create a pattern, as you can see on the right, and you can actually sew it together on top of your avatar on the left. So that gives us a lot of options when we're creating things for you guys as well, like clothing for y'all to use in the character creator.
So you will not actually have to digitally sew everything together.
Yes, I can do that for you.
It's like buying off the rack, only you get to choose the color too.
Right.
Okay, that's the slammer. And you can see that those pants up there. Okay, you can go to the next one. If it's something that's hard or rigid, like their weapons or buckles or something like that, then that's handed down to the actual 3D team, where they can create the sculpts in Houdini and Maya.
And that ends our wonderful little tour through the art world.
Just a little bit about an overview of Titan City history, geography. This is one of many versions of the map of Titan City we've done. It'll probably change again. Everything we've told you, by the way, is of course subject to change until release. That should go without saying. One thing that we wanted to make sure of as we were developing our setting was that we wanted to retain the notion we had seen in other games of the story centering around a single city, because that's a mentally manageable bunch of geography for most people. But we didn't want different kinds of player characters to be divorced from each other, to be divided from each other off in their own little worlds. So both heroic and villainous player characters are going to be located in beautiful Titan City. One setting for all PCs. In that sense, there is no hero-villain divide. They may not be teaming together, they may not necessarily be walking down the street together, but they'll all be part of this single world on the same servers. While there isn't a bless you. While there isn't a divide of that kind, a segregation of that kind in the setting, and there isn't any political division in the setting. It's all Titan City, which is located in Massachusetts. We do have some differences in feel. We have essentially north of Stewart's Bay there, that's the north side of the city. That is the bright, shiny, optimistic city of the future notion that permeates a lot of American comics. The tall buildings and the skyways and the dramatic set piece buildings. South of the bay, we have South Titan, and that is the more edge of survival area of the city, where things are more in disrepair, things are very dark and very threatening. So, but remember, we don't have a hero-villain divide here. So if you want to be a hero cleaning up the dark streets of South Titan and do that for most of your heroic career, you can do that. That's one reason we designed the setting this way. If you are the sort of villain who wants to build giant MacGuffins with Tesla coils and vacuum tubes on them that shoot out lightning and conquer the beautiful buildings with the skyways, you can hang out in North Titan and do that. We've got an elaborate history for the city. We've used I'm a real world history geek, so is Stephanie to an extent, or some of our other writers. Like a lot of cities, the city had a horrific fire, in this case in 1908, that was a catalyst for the Union and rebuilding of the city. We've put in a lot of thought to that. The official history of the fire is like 10 pages long, I think.
15.
We've also actually used comics themselves in developing our setting. Superpowered adventurers, well, they've always been around, first start showing up in significant numbers in Titan City around late 30s or so in publicly notable numbers. Which is, of course, the same period that brought us in the real world the rise of the superhero comic. Similarly, Titan City went through a silver age of heroes in the second half of the 20th century and through a dark age, just as American comics did in the 80s and 90s. And with an event called Hurricane Atlas in 1998, where a group of superpowered heroes rescued the city from this devastating hurricane, that sort of acted as a rebirth of a more heroic ideal as opposed to sort of the grim and gritty, teeth-clenched, stubble on the face, Dark Ages period. So again, this notion of rebirth and revival is critical to the setting itself, and that's, by the time of release, that will have been 17 or so years in the past. So once again, heroism is pretty well established. I just want to say a word about story development, which is aside from all this background stuff, the major thing that your writers do for you. We've built in all kinds of storybooks to the over 5 novels worth of material that we've already written, and we're currently in the process of actually beginning to draft in-game text that you'll actually see. We are trying to design actual gameplay, we're trying to retain comics terminology and using terms like series for an entire quest, would be called a quest or quest chain in most MMOs, and for specific instances, we're calling those episodes. We have those in a variety of genres. We have factional related stories. We have puzzle-oriented stories. We have all kinds of basic superheroic stuff. We're also trying to develop a system currently we're calling story paths. And the idea here is that this is your character's personal type, that they are really the star of this. There are going to be a number of different paths broken up, probably by tone and aspects. We're thinking, a gritty crime fighter of the streets path, a gang lord villain path, a detective path, etc. And another thing that we are very adamant about doing as writers is setting up the system at this early stage to make sure that if your character makes a decision, that decision is retained in a database somewhere and can come back to influence things in the future. So if you build up a reputation as your character of constantly intimidating everyone you deal with, eventually some other non-player characters are going to react with you upon seeing you by saying things like, don't intimidate me, hero man. The idea is that you get to tailor your experience to whatever your vision of your character is. We're trying to maximize your ability to do that to the greatest extent we can.
A little bit of information on the tech side of things, although we don't have a tech person up here. We've got a little bit of information. This is a screen picture of what we did for our 4th of July update. We did a series of fireworks, and there were other purposes behind doing a fireworks display. It was testing some of the mechanics, making sure things could be done in certain ways. The tech team just doesn't believe in doing things for one reason only. They pile 6, 7, 8, 20,000 into one thing, and they make it come out really nice. We will be using the Unreal Engine 4. We were one of the first MMOs to announce that they were using it. It is going to give us a lot of flexibility, and the detail that we can put in is immense. If you look at all the buildings in the background, you can see the individual lights coming on and off. Well, on or off in this case, but you can see the individual things, whereas in other games you see it as an entire building turning on or turning off rather than just the individual offices they're in. And then just for a little taste of some of the things that we are going to be able to do, we've got a little bit of a demo. It's short, it's sweet, but it's full of information.
And it includes a crotch suit.
One thing you will notice on the model here is that the costume is not symmetrical. You can have things on one side of the body that are not on the other side of the body. You can make parts shiny, parts flat, and you don't have to have this one t-shirt is the t-shirt. You can have maybe one sleeve that's ripped off or something along those lines. Exploding things just to make them explode.
Yes, you can design your character to explode. Wow. So this is what our tech folks work on all day. At least that's what they tell us.
Yeah. And then from that,
we're I'm also the liaison between gameplay and the writers, and while I'm not a game mechanics designer, I can tell you a little bit about what we're thinking about power design. I know for those of you who don't like lore that this is a major part of the game. One thing that we wanted to be critically sure to do is that appearance is going to be independent of mechanics. So if you are a character who is resistant to getting injured, that doesn't mean your physical avatar has to be wearing armor. You can have you can rationalize that as invulnerable skin, or however you want to do that. If you are a character who fights your enemies by shooting fire at them, you might shoot it from your hands, but you could also shoot it from a flamethrower, or out of a magic wand, or a magic staff, or whatever. The idea is we're going to set these up internally under the hood to work mechanically the same, but there are going to be a variety of choices and options that you can have. We are going to have a class system, so there is going to be some guidance as to what you can pick. It isn't entirely free-form, but it is extremely flexible. Power setup is going to be, you're going to have a primary set, the thing you roll your easiest in, a secondary, another role you're good at. You also get a tertiary set, another thing you can do well. And there are also going to be various minor and fluff and flavor powers, including travel powers, although travel, if I could fly in real life, let me say I'd be flying from building to building. But with 4 different sets of powers in there, you can customize things pretty well to match whatever your internal concept is, I would hope. We're trying to set up things in a versatile way such that our designers might create internally a burning system. Have a burning melee, for instance, rather than, and you might be able to choose expressions of that as smacking your enemy with fire, or smearing acid on them, or maybe burning them with coal or something else. Again, there's this notion of we want to incorporate maximum flexibility at this point, so we don't have to re-engineer things down the road. You may not have access to every one of these things right at launch, but we're thinking about them now. So we're thinking of your future interests right now. We're working on a system for improving and augmenting your powers, essentially our gear system. There was just an update about this within the last couple of weeks that gives much more detail than I can give you here. All I want to say about it now is that essentially not only can you improve base statistics like how accurate you are or how hard your powers hit, but there are also going to be mechanisms for adding, again, little fluff things like little extra types of damage and stuff.
Okay, and one of the important things that people want to know about, plenty of people have asked about it, is what kind of subscription model we're going to be looking at. Well, one way you can do it is you can buy the box, and included with the box price will be 3 months of subscription service, cash stored currency stipend, which is part of the subscription service, as well as a beta server access if you buy the box before the beta goes out. You can do just the monthly subscription, which will include a stipend of the cash store currency, or you can go free to play. We're not going to lock the game behind a paywall where you have to pay to win. You just have to work a little bit harder than the people that can buy the stuff from the game store. The cash store itself will begin to be available as part of the character creator, which we plan on releasing in advance of the game itself. The cash store currency stipends can be banked for several months on end if you're looking to get a larger item that costs more in the cash store than your individual stipend. If an in-game item is purchased through the store, it unlocks throughout the entire account, but the badge associated with it is not awarded. If you want to get the badge or any kind of in-game perk that goes along with that outside of the costume or the power itself, you would still run the mission arc or whatever it is to get you that badge.
So the idea here is you can pay for access to many things that can be earned in-game, but there's still going to be some kind of record of achievement that can only be earned by actually doing it, such as the badge or the achievement or whatever term is finally set on.
We're also looking at merchandising options. We do have t-shirts in progress. We've got mouse pads, lanyards, books, comics, figurines, stickers, and a bunch of other things have been discussed. We're also looking at in-game advertising, both from outside corporations and players themselves can purchase advertising slots to use for personal or professional use. You can advertise your personal business in the game.
Subject to review, of course.
Yes. Definitely subject to review. The game is T for teen, and it's going to stay as T for teen.
Or as the announcers say, T for teen.
And at this point, questions?